Where I grew up, Halloween wasn't a thing. We never dressed up, never went door to door for candy, and never had haunted houses popping up in the neighborhood. My only exposure to it came from Western movies and TV shows. I never fully grasped the whole concept, but something about the eerie aesthetic, the crisp autumn air, and the dim glow of jack-o'-lanterns fascinated me. It felt magical in a way, and I always wondered what it would be like to experience it firsthand. Fast forward 15 years, and I finally got my wish, though not for the reasons I'd imagined. I moved to the US in my 20s, not because of some childhood dream, but for far more practical reasons. By then, the chance to go trick-or-treating had long passed me by, but that didn't mean I couldn't soak up the spirit of the season in other ways. That's how I found myself at a Halloween party thrown by one of my coworkers. It was meant to be a fun, spooky-themed get-together, a casual team-building thing. Truthfully, the holiday itself was just a bonus. I had a bit of a crush on the guy hosting it, so I was going to be there no matter what. Still, I couldn't deny the added excitement of finally taking part in a holiday I'd only ever seen on screen. The moment I stepped through the front door, though, I knew I'd made a mistake. I had completely underestimated how seriously Americans took this holiday. I figured, since it was a work event, people would keep it simple. Maybe some funny headbands or a splash of fake blood here and there. I was wrong. Bill from HR was fully wrapped in bandages, committed to his mummy look, groaning dramatically as he shuffled through the crowd. Our supervisor, Heather, had gone in the opposite direction, rocking a skin-tight black dress and a sorceress-level smoky eye look that screamed sexy witch. And then there was me, dressed in a plain shirt and slacks, the only nod to the holiday being the flimsy little devil horns perched on my head. I looked like a lost intern who'd wandered into the wrong house. I rarely felt out of place in social settings, but standing there among the werewolves, vampires, and walking corpses, I felt like a complete idiot. Luckily, the coworker I had my eye on was too busy running between the kitchen and the living room to even notice me. That was probably for the best. I decided my plan was simple: blend into the background for an hour or two, grab a drink, and make a quiet exit. And then, I saw him. I am not exaggerating when I say he was the most breathtaking man I had ever laid eyes on. He wasn't wearing a costume either. Not that he needed one. If he'd walked in wearing sweatpants and flip-flops, he still would have been the most captivating person in the room. He stood just a few feet away, completely at ease, one hand in his pocket, the other scrolling absent-mindedly through his phone. Tall, but not intimidatingly so. His chestnut brown hair curled slightly at the ends, catching the light in warm mahogany waves that framed his sharp cheekbones. A short, well-kept ginger beard accented his jawline, and paired with the plaid shirt, he looked like a musician moments away from pulling out an acoustic guitar and serenading the room. Teenage me, if given the chance to design her perfect man, would have created him exactly. Before I even realized what I was doing, I was walking toward him. "Didn't get the memo either?" I asked, flashing the most confident smile I could muster. I had never approached a guy first before. It wasn't my style. But with him, it felt natural, like the obvious thing to do. He looked up from his phone, and when his green eyes met mine, my stomach flipped. And when he smiled, it wasn't love at first sight. No, that would have been an understatement. It was something deeper, primal, a pull so strong it felt like gravity had shifted. Imagine spending your whole life grounded to the earth, never feeling the need to leave it. Then one day, the universe gives you wings. You never knew you wanted to fly, but now that you have, you can't imagine life without it. "You think I normally dress like this?" he joked, flashing a lopsided grin. We clicked instantly. It was effortless, intoxicating. Talking to him felt like reconnecting with someone I had known in another life. Every joke he laughed at, every fleeting glance, every wink, it wasn't just chemistry. It was electricity. And he knew it. There was no doubt in my mind. He knew exactly what he was doing, turning the tension up bit by bit, pushing me just to see how long I could hold out before I snapped. And I snapped. It was me who led him upstairs, away from prying eyes. It was me who pressed him against the bathroom wall, my breath mixing with his. And when our lips met, his stubble scraping against my skin, his fingers tracing down my spine, it was euphoria. Pure, distilled euphoria. As I started unbuttoning his shirt, he suddenly grabbed my wrist with one hand, while the other went between us. I tried to protest, the frustration building up in me, but I couldn't even form the words. His mischievous grin, though, told me that he wasn't about to leave me hanging for long. "Not here," he said, his voice low. "My place is just down the road." I agreed, breathless. I tried to play it cool, but the desperation in my voice was clear. This wasn't just a desire anymore. It was a need. A burning, gnawing ache that was spreading through me, from my chest to my core. I needed him. I had to feel him, taste him. It was like my heart was about to break if I didn't get him right now. To my relief, the walk to his place was quick. The anticipation was almost unbearable, and I had to physically stop myself from just throwing myself at him in the elevator. When we got to his apartment, the first thing that caught my eye were the boxes everywhere. It looked like either he was in the middle of moving or preparing to do so. I made a mental note to bring it up later, during some pillow talk, perhaps. Right now, the state of his apartment wasn't even close to being my concern. As soon as we stepped into his bedroom, everything shifted. Oscar wasn't the same man anymore. He dropped the cool, composed act and, with a sudden intensity, pushed me onto the bed, positioning himself over me. His breath against my skin felt like fire, but his lips? They were cool, teasing. His fingertips were like branding irons as they traced their way down my thighs, marking me, claiming me. I could feel my mind shutting down. The pain mixed with the pleasure in a way I couldn't process, but I didn't want to stop. I drank it all in. The heat, the need. It was like I had been nothing but a body, an object, meant for this moment. And in that moment, that's exactly what I wanted to be. Part of me knew this wasn't going to end well, that I was walking straight into something I couldn't escape, but I didn't care. Then, suddenly, his doorbell rang. It was enough to shake me from my haze. Just for a moment, I felt his warm breath pull away from me, and I looked down, seeing his messy, reddish-brown hair pull back from between my legs. He groaned in frustration. "Ugh, it's probably that old lady from downstairs complaining about the noise again. Stay here. I'll deal with it." He threw on a bathrobe and left the room, closing the door behind him in a way that felt deliberate, as if he was trying to hide me. I flopped back onto the bed, my body aching with need, still on fire from the contact. I could hear his deep voice exchange words with someone in the other room. A sterner, older voice, probably his neighbor. How long was this going to take? Against Oscar's request, I climbed out of bed, my body still begging for him. I made my way to what I assumed was the bathroom, looking for a way to cool off. My skin felt like it was about to melt off from the heat, and I needed to find something, anything to quench the burning. But, as I passed the closet, something else caught my eye. The closet door was slightly ajar, sticking out in a way that didn't feel quite right, like something heavy was pushing against it from the inside. Maybe just his typical guy clutter, I thought. I've seen it before with my brothers. Piles of random stuff shoved into a closet. But with the way I was feeling and with Oscar still talking to his neighbor, any distraction from the ache that was throbbing in me was welcome. I walked closer to the door, grabbing my bra off the bed and tossing it back onto the mattress. The door was one of those sliding ones, and as I placed my palm against the cold handle, I noticed a soft, rhythmic noise coming from the other side. It was low, almost like a whispering sound. I stopped, breathing. I pressed my ear to the wood, trying to focus on the sound. It was breathing. I couldn't be hearing that, could I? Was it just the pipes? I mean, do pipes even run through closets? I couldn't be sure, but the sound was undeniable. I steadied my breath, gripped the handle tighter, and made a snap decision. I was going to find out. If I was wrong, the worst that would happen was that I'd ruin the mood and make a mess of things. I wasn't wrong. As I opened the door, two bodies tumbled out, one male, the other female, or at least that's what I assumed. It was hard to tell. They were so shriveled, reduced to little more than skeletons wrapped in a sheet. I froze. They were not the only things in the closet. I stepped back, my heart pounding as a sick realization settled in. This wasn't just a mess. This was something else entirely. It felt as if every ounce of moisture had been completely drained from their bodies. The man was lifeless, and I could see blood pooling beneath his skull, spreading across the vinyl floor. My eyes widened in horror, but what shocked me more was the woman. I initially thought she was dead too, but she stirred, weakly trying to rise to her knees, slipping in the blood beneath her. I wanted to help her. I really did. But fear froze me in place, every muscle in my body refusing to move. Her frailty overtook her, and she collapsed back onto the floor, flailing her arms in a helpless attempt to get up. What the hell had he done to them? Was he going to do the same to me? The thought nearly choked me. Panic surged, mingling with the growing dread in my chest. I had to get out. My body acted before my mind could catch up. I crouched down beside the two bodies, desperately searching through the discarded clothing for my phone. It had to be here somewhere. I could feel a tiny bit of relief when my fingers brushed over the phone and I finally managed to pull it free. Just as I started to rise, the shriveled woman lunged at me, grabbing my ankle with surprising strength. I yelped, trying to pull away, but her grip was like iron, despite the sickening crack of her shoulder. Her face was horrific, gaunt to the point that I could see the outline of her teeth through the skin of her cheeks. Her mouth was so dry she couldn't speak, so instead, she pressed one finger to her ruined lips. Then, with trembling fingers, she pointed to the bottom drawer of the nightstand. The look in her eyes was pleading. She wanted me to open it. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I nodded and moved toward the drawer. My fingers were shaking as I slid it open, and buried beneath some old pill bottles and tangled cables, I found it. A gun. My heart raced as I clutched the cool metal against my chest, feeling its weight. I checked the magazine. It was fully loaded. I slid it back into place, cocked the slide, and clicked the safety off. I had only been in the States a short while, but one of the first things I did was visit a shooting range. I had no idea then that I'd actually need that training. With the gun in one hand and my phone in the other, I slowly rose to my feet. Standing on the other side of the bed was the monster himself. He hadn't moved. His expression was as indifferent as ever, his eyes bored, as if I were just another pest he was trying to ignore. "Look, I just called the cops," I lied, holding my phone out as if it were my only lifeline. I kept the gun hidden behind my back. "Stay calm, stay cool. If I were you, I'd leave now before they get here." He didn't flinch, not even a smirk. He simply stood there, like a mannequin, staring at me, half lit by the LED lights on the wall. Okay, okay, I said, trying to play it cool despite my racing heart. You probably want to clean up this mess first. I'll just head out of your way, yeah? Still, no reaction. I started to circle around the bed, keeping my eyes fixed on him, moving cautiously but steadily. Then, about halfway to his side, his head jerked violently, as if something had taken over him. His body remained still, but his head twisted back and forth violently, as though he were trying to snap his neck. I screamed in shock as I saw two ivory horns burst from his eye sockets. They were long, gleaming, and horrifying, snaking forward before curling against his skull, scraping along the sides of his face. Shreds of his hair and skin clung to them, like some grotesque living thing. I snapped my eyes shut, desperate to escape. I bolted from the room, stumbling into the living room, desperate for the door. Of course, it was locked. I tried to throw my whole weight against it, slamming it with everything I had, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I screamed for help. But then, a wet chuckle rang out from behind me. I spun around, gun raised. It was standing there. The thing, the monster, was completely naked, standing between the couch and TV. There was a sickening slit from its navel down to its groin, which it held open, grinning. From the slit, a pulsating tendril emerged, and at the end was something that looked like a giant hypodermic needle. That's what it had done to them. I gritted my teeth, took a deep breath, and fired. The first shot hit the couch, the second grazed the wall, but after that, the bullets found their mark. The thing staggered, but didn't go down. I kept firing. My arms burned with every shot, but I couldn't stop. My hands shook as I pulled the trigger, letting the recoil rattle my bones. I don't know how many rounds I fired before I finally stopped to assess the damage. It was gone. No body, no blood, nothing. I took a step forward, my heart still pounding in my chest. The room was eerily silent now. All I could hear was the ringing in my ears. And then pain. A searing, crippling pain shot up from my left thigh, spreading across my stomach. It felt like my insides were being squeezed between two flaming hot irons. I looked down and saw the creature's massive stinger embedded in my leg, wriggling as it burrowed deeper. I couldn't even scream. The agony was so intense that all I could do was collapse to my knees. I couldn't even touch the thing to pull it out. Dark veins spread like black worms across my skin, crawling out from the point of insertion and winding their way up my leg. Suddenly, the thing was there again, grabbing a fistful of my hair and tilting my head back so I was forced to face it. All I could see were its teeth, rows upon rows of sharp, gleaming teeth, slick with saliva. I couldn't understand. Was this real? I refused to believe it. This had to be a dream, a nightmare I would wake up from. But no, nothing made sense anymore. I gritted my teeth, and as the monster's drooling face came closer, I pressed the barrel of my gun beneath its chin. I closed my eyes, braced myself, and pulled the trigger. The next moments are a blur. I remember the echo of the gunshot vibrating in my skull, the world going mute, and finally managing to tear the creature's stinger from my leg as it recoiled. It dragged me across the floor, its feet pressing into my back. I reached for the front door, but before I could touch the handle, it burst open. I remember two police officers, their weapons drawn, their faces filled with disbelief as they shouted orders at the creature. I remember the thing holding me hostage by the neck before it retreated back toward the window. The glass shattered as it leapt out, gunfire following. And then, blackness. When I woke up, I was in custody. They didn't believe me at first. How could they? The doctors didn't think I was sane. But after a few weeks, I learned that I wasn't the only one. Malgard, they called them. Shapeshifters who took on human form to lure us in like cattle, draining us down to the last drop. No one knows where they come from or why they do it. The authorities keep things quiet, but it's happening more often now. Survivors don't get separated from society anymore. They made me sign a non-disclosure agreement and sent me on my way. I was lucky. The only damage was to my leg, but that's still healing. And I still don't believe it. But I know now, somewhere deep down, they're out there. I know I probably shouldn't be talking about this so openly, but honestly, I don't think it even matters anymore. I bet by 2025, if not sooner, the truth will be out there for everyone to see. Until then, whether you choose to believe me or not, just be careful who you go home with.